You know what it would be?
Massive.
Massive.
Bro,
Yes.
your transitions are fantastic.
I know. MLS history, I take my transitions to the next level. All right, let's talk about the massive for the Columbus Crew. My source for this one, an article by Steve Sirk called The Origin of Massive. It's on the Columbus Crew website. I highly recommend checking it out. According to Webster's dictionary, the term massive has many forms. Forming or consisting of a large mass, large, solid, or heavy in structure, or it can mean having mass. But that's not quite how the Columbus Crew used the word. Let's talk about what it actually means for the crew. The term massive began as a self deprecating joke for crew fans, specifically started by crew supporter Zach Bernardo. It began following the hiring of Kevin Keegan as manager of Manchester City. And for all the City fans listening, let me give you a brief history of your club since you were obviously not following back then. City at the time of Keegan's hiring was just getting relegated to the first division, which is the equivalent to today's championship. However, under Keegan, they were able to win the first division and bounce right back up to the Prem. After this, the club began allegedly throwing around the term massive club, despite really having no success to date, and massively being in the shadow of their next door neighbors, Manchester United. The same mentality was then brought to Columbus. Around the same time, Columbus were by far the smallest market in MLS, and Columbus as a city was widely disregarded by many, as it was considered the third city of Ohio behind Cincinnati and Cleveland. One reporter covering Newcastle's trip to the US wrote about their departure from DC to Columbus, saying, an altogether less fashionable part of the United States. Steve says it best. Massive was born of a disrespected team playing a disrespected sport in a disrespected city. From the period of 2003 to 2007, with the one off exception of the 2004 season, the crew struggled mightily, not making the playoffs or winning any trophies during those other seasons. What better time for Columbus fans to make like City fans and act like the club is the most massive on earth? On soccer message boards, crew fans would insert Columbus into any big European transfer rumors, say David Beckham moving to Real Madrid. The only thing massive about him is being a massive fraud for not moving to the mighty Columbus during the 2003 summer transfer window. Ultimately, whichever superstar was in the crosshairs would decide that he was not ready for the pressure of playing for such a massive club and would chicken out and sign with Manchester United or Real Madrid or some other lesser unmassive club. You've heard of Arsenal Fan TV or AFTV? How about Crew TV, the global television network designed to feed the insatiable worldwide demand for all things Columbus Crew? Crew TV walked so that AFTV could run. All of these centered around how massive the Columbus Crew were and how massive a desire people all around the world were in the crew and getting crew information, hearing everything about the crew. So, what happened to the term when the crew actually started to be really good in 2008? At that point, rather than it being a joke, the term became a meaning of pride. Massive was used to describe the players they had during this time period, such as Guillermo Barros and Chad Marshall. Massive was used to describe the relationship between fans and players, which was so good that when team captain Frankie Hiduk was suspended for one game, he spent it chugging beers with fans pregame. The crew had turned a corner and were no longer the bottom dwellers they were for the previous 3 seasons. By all meanings of the word, at this time in MLS history, the crew and Columbus were truly massive. The crew would go on to win the Shield Cup double in 2008 following a 3-1 win over New York Red Bulls in the MLS Cup final. Had to throw that one in there for you. The term had gotten so massive, the term had gotten so massive, if you would, that the crew's broadcaster Dwight Burgess even started to work it into telecasts, s- uh, describing things such as their uniforms as the massive banana kit. What was the title of the sports cover story in the Columbus Dispatch following the Crew's MLS Cup victory? Only one word: massive. Michael Arce of the Columbus Dispatch is credited with playing a massive role in making the term mainstream, as he would frequently use the term in his articles, recognizing how special the term was becoming for the Crew. Even the title of Steve's book on the 2008 Crew season was called A Massive Season. And as I'm sure my co-host knows this well, um, the name of the Crew's subreddit, none other than The Massive. The club itself even really started to embrace it by writing "Be Massive" in the locker room following the team's renovation of the locker room ahead of the 2011 season. There was even a scarf designed for the July 2011 matchup between Columbus and Newcastle, which has one side saying "Massive Magpies," which, might I add, is a phenomenal scarf. If I can get my hands on that, that'd be amazing. Additionally, the Crew in September 2011 had created a marketing campaign all around its slogan of "Dare to be Massive." So while Massive started as a self-deprecating joke about the Crew during some rough times of the franchise, it ended up being so much more for the Crew supporters, and Columbus as a city. It was pride for a team just starting to hit its stride. It was connectivity between players and fans. It was a way to remember all those important to the club. It was a brand for the club. And most importantly, it was Columbus. Massive.
I love that story. I remember when they first put it into the suggestion. First off, you know how hard it was to find the Columbus Crew Reddit?
Oh, because you kept looking for
Because I kept
Columbus
looking for
Crew.
Crew and it never popped up. So I literally had to Google Columbus Crew Reddit, and there was like the massive. I'm like, what?
What is that?
So again, for years I didn't know what it was. So until somebody put it in, it's like if you don't have the massive in there, you're wasting your time. So I started doing. I found that article you just mentioned. I'm like, oh my god, this is phenomenal. They were the first MLS S housers, for lack of a better term. They were the first ones to go out and be like, bro, you're going to Man United? What a bum. Like,
They do what we do on a daily basis, but they did it on such a bigger scale than what we
yeah.
do.
And they did it before it was cool too. Like, this is something we do now because everybody on Twitter does it. They did it before like anybody did. It was like monumental for, and again, that's why you find like that's why the you could probably argue that is a massive has a massive direct line to Save the Crew movement. Because without that whole thing of people coming together, be like, yeah, our club isn't great, but we love it all the same. I went to all these games where we may have been bottom of the table, but we won our last game and it was massive. And that's what we are. We're massive. Or the pitch invasion that we've talked about, or the last second free kick goal. These little things all tie together and create community. And that's what drove obviously the Save the Crew movement, which is there, but that's also what drives the sport continuing to move on. That's why people need to get into it by just picking a team and getting to be a part of it. So, very very cool story. Loved hearing your rendition of it. I thought it was very very good.